Yo, 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 hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Andrewcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Buck2. Let me take a second and tell you about Buck2, what Buck2 is. Buck2 is an American fashion brand inspired by art and urban culture. You see, they blend Afro-inspired art and urban aesthetics to create unique and one-of-a-kind products that you will not find anywhere else in the world. As a brand, they want to see every authentic aspect of you, the customer, within their products. They are striving to create and awaken the culturally elevated through quality clothing that reflects you, again, the customer. Buck2 is really awesome. I had the honor of having Chris, the CEO, on our podcast, and he's a really, really good guy. And his product is really awesome too. I bought some of their merchandise before I had Chris on the show, and I was really happy with it. So, today, what I can do for you, the listener, is I'm going to hook you up real quick. If you go to the Buck2 website and you go to checkout and you put in the code Andrewcast39, that's all caps, Andrewcast, and then the number 39, you get 10% off your order. 10%. That's what I can do for you, the viewer, 10% off. So, go on over to Buck2.co. All you got to do is Google it, Buktu, to get you some Afro urban clothing. It's awesome. It's stylish. It's highly artistic. Great products. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Buck2. Thank you, Andrewcast listeners. And enjoy the show. This is Andrewcast, episode 42.
Hey.
I'm here with comedian, actress, comic, Erin Dohony.
Hey.
Also Queen of Faces. And we have my main man, DJ Slacksss,
Hey, how's it going, guys?
in the building today. And Erin, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. And how much time you got? Like maybe like an hour and a half, something like that?
Yeah, hour and a half.
We're going to be here for 3 hours.
I got nowhere to be.
We
Yeah.
have been here for 3 hours, like talking about just stuff in general.
Yeah, no, podcasts are fun because you do sort of lose track of time and you just like.
Once you get into the groove of just like a topic and you're expanding on it, you know, yeah, the possibilities are endless. But I just want to, again, thank you for coming on, but also say that you are a very funny individual.
Aw,
Somebody
thank you.
who I watched Temple Smash. I remember one time I came out to a performance and you guys had like sets and moving pieces. And it was weird because it was right when I was leaving Temple. And it was something I was like, wow, I wish I would have got involved in this because you guys seemed like a family and like there was so much like comedy. It seemed like Saturday Night Live. And I know that's like, for people who aren't aware, Temple Smash is like a live comedy thing at Temple University. And you were like an actress in that.
Yeah.
And it was super cool.
It was so much fun. I did it from freshman to senior year. I did it all 4 years. And I was the art director for a part of it, like the sets and stuff. I was in charge of that stuff. By my senior year, I was a producer for it. I tried being on the writing team. I pitched once and it didn't work out. And then I went back and I read my sketches like a couple of years later and I was like, oh my God, this is garbage. Like they were so bad. But yeah, no, I was better off as like a behind the scenes person and occasionally like on camera.
Was that your inspiration to go into comedy originally, or was that something that was innately in you before?
Definitely. It was how I met the people that I got into stand-up through. Mainly, like, I remember Alex Grubard was a part of Smash. He was an actor. And then he told me like where to go find the open mics and everything. So it was like the gateway into comedy. Temple Smash is a dangerous gateway drug for comedy.
That's what I see. Like a lot of people that are in that go out to do like other things like hosting and like voiceovers and stuff like that. Like it's a multifaceted thing.
I think the cool thing about Smash, or something I realized, is that it seems really like inclusive in the sense that like they accept a lot of people, you know what I mean? And they want to accept like new people. You know, I always see a lot of my friends were in Smash too. I was never a part of it, but just the fact that I see a lot of people come and go, and you know, they all speak highly of it. I think that goes a long way.
I know people who are in Smash right now that I've met through Philly Improv Theater, and it's so funny talking about like, okay, who was in charge when you started, and it goes by generations, you know? So I met somebody who I was graduated by the time they started, and I was asking her like, oh my God, how is it right now? So it's nice to get updates on how it is.
So you were taking improv classes too, or you were part of the improv group later on?
I took Improv 101 at FIT, and I'll pretty like regularly, I love going to FIT shows, and sometimes they have, you know, stand-up showcases. I've done sketch characters there. FIT's really good for, you know, having a bunch of different stuff that you can do there.
So FIT is that's in where in Philadelphia is that?
That's at the Adrian Theater right across from Helium Comedy Club. It's at like 20th and Sansom. Yeah, so you can go to Helium, and then like FIT is right across the street.
Is that like the same owner? Like was that?
No, it's I think the building that FIT is in is a whole bunch of different things. It's like comedy, sports. It's a shared space. And then Helium is just its own separate thing across the street. Helium's a whole chain around the country.
Helium was the first time I saw someone really bomb, like really, really bad.
When?
And it was crazy. Like, I'm a huge Bert Kreischer fan. So I went to, I'm not sure if you're aware of Bert Kreischer. He's part of like that whole Joe Rogan comedy circle with like Ari Shaffir and all them like that. And he had an opener that I remember he got up on stage. And he was kind of starting like he was riffing, but like his energy was really low. And I felt like everybody was picking up on how his energy was super low. And you could tell like midway through the show he hit like a low because the whole audience was quiet. And I was like, man, like he's got to do something. So we started getting like explicit just for the sake of getting explicit.
Oh, no.
But people picked up on how that was like a desperation tactic, and it backfired. So right before it got like really bad, like right before people started to commentate, because you could tell the crowd was getting restless, he ended his set. And when Bert came on, like he completely just boom, he blew up the room. It was almost like that opener, like that bad opener was a setup for the explosion that was about to come.
What?
Like it was crazy. Because like Bert is a very explosive performer. If anyone knows anything about his comedy, like when he gets up on stage, the first thing he does is take his shirt off.
Oh,
for, like some songs. Like he's just like really and he's like kind of like a bigger, like fatter guy. So like he's just like taking his shirt off all sexy, but he has like this big gut, you know what I'm saying?
No.
Like he's like me, like he sweats a lot. He's just like this big dude, you know? And like everyone's like, yeah, they're like cheering and stuff. So it went from totally quiet to just like thunderous applause. But then like that's where I got to witness firsthand, and it's kind of going to segue into my next point of discussion, like how hard stand-up is and just how I get, again, like when I see that guy up there, and it didn't look like he was on point, but I knew he was trying to win the crowd over. That's the thing that people don't understand about stand-up, because I feel like people look at people telling jokes into a mic and like, I can do that. That's super easy. Like I'm good at public speaking. But then when you get up there, like you flounder. You know, have you ever had like an experience like that, or
at Helium? Yeah.
Well, if I could ask, how many years have you been doing stand-up? Because I don't know.
I started in 2014, so it's coming up on 4 years.
Okay.
Now, I mean, like.
And how often?
I do it at least twice a week because I help run an open mic and a showcase on Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, and it's crazy how like since I started, it was a handful of mics. It was like 3 or 5, and now it's a dozen, and there's so many shows happening, and just like Philly comedy is like hot to get into right now. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But I bombed at Helium as a part of the Philly's Funniest contest.
What year was this?
Last year.
Oh, okay.
So it always happens in the summertime. and they have like first rounds. Philly's Funniest is nuts. Everybody comes out of the woodwork, like people who have never done stand-up before, and they're like, I'll pay. Yeah, and they're like, it's crazy because you could go to an open mic and perform for free, but they're like, no, I'm gonna pay $25 and like try it in a contest setting. And it's this whole thing where you get 10 comps and you got to bring people and stuff. But I had only performed at Helium once before at the open mic. And then I went up for my Philly's Funniest set and I like ate shit in the middle. Like I forgot because I like stumbled and I forgot my set. And then my friend was sitting up front and she said like my eyes were just like you could see like the galaxy. Like I just like blanked. And and what you were saying about the audience can pick up on it when you stumble and they can feel it.
Yeah.
Like you just lose them immediately.
Yeah, it's all about the energy.
It's crazy.
And they can sense it. Audiences are smart.
Yeah.
Because they say like don't battle anybody with a mic. Because like you could just if somebody heckled you. Like, you could probably just roast them easier because you could talk over them automatically. But also, like, you got to play to the crowd because the crowd has, like you said, power. So that's, I feel like it's a rite of passage for comics, though, to at least bomb once. Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts with comics, and they're all like, I bombed here, I bombed there. Like, you have to. Like, it's just something that happens.
Well, when you find yourself in that situation, do you try and remember your lines, or do you just try and improv something until you get to the next part of like a different joke, you know what I mean? Or do you like in this particular instance did you were just like, oh, I forget everything I was gonna say?
I like took a second and I knew that the audience knew that I had lost my place because I went and like there was a very pregnant pause.
Yeah.
I've seen people recover from bombing by just like checking in with the audience and they're like, how are you guys?
Yeah.
Where are we?
Yeah.
How are we doing? I saw one of my favorite local comics, Miguel, I love you. We were at Philly Comedy Club and we were performing for an audience that had like paid to be there. And there was a group of people, like a bunch of couples out on date night, and they were like talking so loud and they were not listening to him. And he was like, guys, and he appealed to like their emotion and he was like, guys, this is my dream. I am up here working on my dream. Like, I know you're having fun and stuff, but just like, and he made them laugh because he was like, look at me. Look at what I'm making myself. Like, I'm doing this for you.
He just got hysterical and just like demanded their attention with that. Yeah.
And he was just like, guys, can't you just please listen to me? I'm up here talking about my hopes and my fears and I am exposing myself for you.
I'm a huge fan of Patrice O'Neill, and he said in an interview once in Opie and Anthony, I'm not sure if you're aware of this comic, if you've ever seen The Office, he was one of the janitors on The Office.
Okay.
And he said that his strategy for like bombing or people heckling him is to just throw down the grenade, in his words, which is basically like you roast, like aggressively roast. Bill Burr does the same thing. Like when people are heckling him, like he just comes straight at them, like, and whoever they're sitting near. Not only is that guaranteed to make someone laugh, because I feel like a comic is more adept at like roasting somebody and picking out something like that, but it also just gives you command of the audience because everyone's like, oh snap, like I can't believe he just said that.
It draws attention.
Yeah. It's nuts. I think if you go to a comedy show and you think that you're a part of the show and you should talk, you're a psychopath. You're a crazy person.
Or you're really drunk. Like people just want to be part of it, you know? Yeah.
Every comedy show I've ever been at, I just like to stick to myself and, you know, and giggle myself, you know? I hate the people that talk, man.
I just like to giggle, man.
Yeah, man. I just want to sit there and giggle.
I just think if you like pay to see somebody and then you're like, I can be just as funny.
Yeah.
Like you had a lot to drink. Or you're just an asshole.
That's the whole illusion. Like they want that energy. Because I'm sure there's probably a set where you killed and you felt that energy. Like everyone clapping and applauding. And like those are your thoughts. Like your originality just received praise from a group of people. And it probably felt amazing.
That's why you do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And then somebody just wants to coattail on that. Like, yeah, my idea is funny too.
I
Like,
know.
That's probably the worst.
I mean, you know, it's... the best feeling that I've ever gotten, I performed at Punchline on one of the first, they have this monthly Wednesday showcase called Really Funny Comedians Who Happen to Be Women, and like it's all female lineup.
Awesome.
And I went and I did a set and like my family came out to see me and stuff, and then afterwards...
Were you nervous about that?
No, because I made sure to make it clean material.
Okay.
But I have a lot of jokes about growing up Irish Catholic, and I had people come up to me afterwards and talk about being Catholic, and they're like, your jokes reminded me of this, and like I connected with strangers on something, and that was so nice.
Yeah, that they could relate to it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big part of comedy. I don't know how you feel about that, but like,
Well, it's all about being relative, or relating to what they're saying. You know what I mean? If you can't relate to it, then how do you find something funny?
right?
Exactly.
It's like observational humor is like the most popular type of comedy now. Like usually when there's a fat comic, like you think like, oh, his shtick is gonna be like I'm fat and every joke's gonna sprout from that. But it's like if you have something beyond that, like you have a general observation. Like I feel like Joe Rogan's the best at it, where he's just talking about just there's this one joke, and it's a special, so it's not like I'm giving away anyone's material. It's not like I saw this like at a show and I'm giving it because
Claiming it as yours.
I hate that too. Like if someone's talking about a bit and it's not like on Netflix or anything, like you just gave away somebody's joke. Like that could be really bad if a lot of people hear it.
That's true.
He was talking about this moment where he was in Vegas with his friends and he was really drunk and he went to the bathroom. And there's this moment where he's going to the urinal and like he's so drunk, but he's peeing. And like when you're at a urinal, you're just forced to stare at a wall. And he's like, it's that moment that every guy's just like, what am I doing here, man? Because like all the stimuli is gone, so you just have to look at this wall. He's like,
it sucks. It's always so bright.
Right, and I completely related to that.
Yeah.
He's like, I should probably just get out of here. And like, it's that type of humor that people have had that experience, but it's an unspoken one. It's not like everyone talks about it. People just the fact that they can link that makes them laugh. Like I don't know what it is.
What you said about observational humor is super important. I think it's like the best and smartest comics, the local ones that I've seen, they'll immediately come out and like make a joke about their appearance, because I think that it's important, because like you walk out and an audience makes a snap judgment about you before you say anything, so it's funny for you to be like, I know what you're thinking. I look like this, I always say that you can tell that I look like a recovering Catholic. And that's just because I'm so Irish looking, and people are just like, ugh. And if people clap for me, I say that I can hear the guilt in their claps, and they're as guilty as me.
That's funny.
I feel like one of the big things about just comedy in general is being able to laugh at yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's
That's like the first step.
That's super true.
Because that's where you get the observation, is if you're in a weird situation, like you're going into a bathroom and everybody, a bunch of bros with their penises out.
It's a funny situation.
But you got to be able to like see yourself and laugh at yourself and then take that with you.
I'm with that. I think just like to make fun of anyone else, like you have to be able to make fun of yourself hard, like just be able to just roast yourself essentially. And that's like one of my favorite things. But I just want to ask you, like, as far as comedians go, professional or local, like who are your inspirations? Like what kind of styles do you like? And
I was thinking about this on the way here. My favorite Netflix comic right now is Patton Oswalt's special Annihilation.
Okay, I heard a lot about that.
I have shown that to 3 people for the first time, and it is like, because he's coming back from recently being a widower. Like it's his first special since losing his wife, and it's like this really it's this intense, emotional, but it's so funny. He's my favorite Netflix person. Local comics, like one of my closest friends and like girl who's been in the game the longest is Rachel Fogletto. She, when I started, it wasn't that many female comedians, and she really took me under her wing, and she brought me on as a co-host for Comedy for Gentlemen, the monthly strip club show that I host every first Friday. And she helped me learn how to produce, how to book a show, how to promote a show.
Okay, so she's like she really is a vet. How long has she been in the game?
Like, I can't even tell you, much longer than me. But yeah, Rachel is like one of my faves. There's so many good lady comics in the area. Mary Radzinski, Carolyn Busa moved to New York.
How's the scene in Philly? You said it was like bigger than ever.
It's popping.
And why, if you don't mind? Like, why do you think so much now at this time?
I think it's just there's always a flow of new people coming out to open mics, but I think just a lot of people have been, there was like sort of a scarcity of open mics and shows, and people were just like, well, I could, go to a bar and start one myself and stuff. And it's always funny how Philly's Funniest season in the summertime like brings more people out to open mics, and then, you know, it's this ebb and flow where also like people, you know, get lives and they get married or they have kids and they sort of drop off and they don't do comedy as much. So I've made like some of my best friends through comedy, people that I never would have hung out with otherwise, like, you know, people who are parents and just in different stages of life, but you get together and you talk about these like really intimate details of your life, of who you're dating and what you're doing for work and things that scare you, and you get to know people really quick at open mics.
Yeah.
And it's just like fast track to friendship, you know?
Right, because there's that vulnerability, you know, which is the funny part. But you said something about like people get married and they drop off, or they get like lives and they drop off. I was working with somebody last week, and I was working a late night event, which I had to help with the technical side of like displays and audio for people that were talking on stage and stuff. And one of the techs I was working with, we just had like this really interesting conversation, which is kind of in the same vein. Like it was very vulnerable. Like it started off with us talking about just like conspiracy theories. Then we moved on to like the government and stuff like that. And it was really late at night. And I remember I was saying, and I'm very fortunate because I get to do what I love for a living. And he was like, man, if I could do it over. And this guy was like 50. He was like, I would try stand-up comedy. And I was like, for real?
Whoa.
And he was like, yeah, man. He's like, I feel like I'd be good at it. Like, he's like, I feel like I could do it. He's like, but it's too late now. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, man, I got a family. Like, I got a job. Like, I said, dude, just like record yourself and put it on YouTube or something. I was like, you should have something like just for yourself, you know, and then just maybe listen to that and maybe it'll give you some confidence to like go out and try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
He was like, I don't know.
What have you got to lose?
Yeah, you can always find time too, and you know you can be super busy, but there's always gonna be one free day where you can try something. So
Yeah, but it just
to that guy, do it.
Yeah, to
Do
that
it,
guy, do it
man.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage. I talked about this in the last episode. People seem to have a fear of public speaking because historically, when you were up speaking in front of like a congregation of people, you were making like a case for yourself. Like, I'm not a witch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, these are the reasons why. So because of that history of public speaking is usually somebody trying to de-guilt themselves, there seems to be an innate nervousness in human beings when they get up on stage. I feel like ever since I've known you, like you're very bold. You're like an individual who, it's not that you don't care, but you don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't.
I do not care.
How did you get to that level? Like, is that something that you just have, or like, what's the secret to beating the nervousness?
Being at a bar helps when you're
Right, obviously.
drinking and it's nuts. I mean, because open mics are so weird. You know, you'll get like super seasoned comedians who are there like practicing for shows and
New
stuff.
material.
Yeah,
Trying it out.
And but then you'll get completely new people, and you can always tell new people not because they're stumbling over themselves or they're not confident, they're too confident.
Really?
Yeah, they come out swinging and they're like, man, I got so much to tell you. And I learned this, you have to get through a year of stand-up comedy and going to open mics and writing your own jokes, and then you start over. Like, you scrap because you got to get used to it, and
Right.
you have to get a feel for audiences. One thing that I've noticed is like really important to develop is to have jokes at the ready and like have a set in mind, and then be able to get a read on the audience and what they're feeling and what they're thinking and how they're responding to stuff. And I have had to pivot before in the middle of my set and be like, whoa, you guys are way too conservative. I can't go telling like jokes about my twat, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna like it.
So you got to change up on the spot.
So you gotta learn how to change on the spot.
See, that's what I would have a tough time with.
It's
Yeah.
not easy.
When I watch shows, I always find it interesting how comedians transfer between jokes. Like, is that something you rehearse I mean, I'm sure you rehearse it all, but like not just the joke itself, but leading one into the next. You know what I mean? Because
The
they're always so
transitions.
they're always so different. So, like, is that something that's hard for you, or?
I mean, it's tough to smoothly transition, especially when you have jokes in mind. It was like nuts. So I was so shook from how bad my first Philly's Funniest was that I organized it so I wasn't going to change anything. It was like word for word. And I was like so Catholic school anal, and I took a piece of paper and I folded it into thirds and I wrote my set word for word and then the bullet points and then like 6 words to organize it into sections.
Okay.
And like that was something where
Yes,
I wasn't
that's
going
the
to
level of
stray.
detail
Yeah.
that you have to go through if you want to be confident in your work.
Or if you're insane like me.
Yeah.
So all it took was that bombing for you to be like, yo, I'm about to reform everything.
I know. I was like, I'm going to put my work in.
So your writing process has changed because of that? Or are you more improvisational because of the improv background?
It does vary from like show to show. You know, if it's something big, like out of town, like I'm going to be on a show in Baltimore this Thursday that I'm
Sick.
super excited for. I've only been in Baltimore one time. And if it's like, you know, something big that I'll, you know, prepare for, but if it's, you know, something local or I'm at the show that I'm running, I'm able to like improv a little more and like goof around. And also there'll be people in the audience who are just like being goofy or disruptive, and you've got to like address that first and just be like, how are you guys having fun? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, it's different every time. Audiences are wild.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of conflict at all. You just got to shut it down. I was going to say that a lot of people say that the first rule of improv, because you mentioned improv, is, I'm not sure if they taught you this. I'd never been to a class, but we had another comedian on the show who was like big into improv. He said that one of the big like laws of improv is, if this is true, then so is that, right? Isn't that like the whole credence of like...
Yeah.
And it's like you make an observation, like, I guess with the Catholic like jokes, it would be like, this guy's a priest, and if that's true, he probably touches little kids or something like that, right? Is that like
dark example?
Right? I don't know, like, but that's kind of where that's kind of where it comes from, where it's like you make a main observation, and then the rest of your observations are just like kind of references that people would be like, oh, okay, of course, because he's a fisherman, or because she's like whatever. Is that like...
No, that is true. I mean, like with improv, and if this is true, then so is this. I think that's more of like, and I'm speaking from extensive 101 experience, like a bunch of years ago. I can't even remember when I took that class. It was very fun though. I love, my teacher was Frank Farrell, and he is like one of my very good friends from the comedy world. So I had my friend teaching me like improv 101, and it was just
super cool.
Great. But it's about like constructing a whole universe where like you take something that somebody said to you and you're like, okay, how can I expand upon this? And that does relate to stand up in a way. You're right.
I feel like Whose Line Is It Anyway made that popular.
I'm not like an improv genius by any means, but I feel like when I try improv just with my friends and stuff, like I feel like I'm best when I'm just almost not even think about what I'm saying. I'm kind of just like bam, bam, bam. You know what I mean? Like taking what I can get. You know, like it's not even like I'm having like, I don't have any rules in my head or anything. You know.
You're somebody who's naturally funny though, and I think it's your sporadic nature that just amplifies the stuff that you do. I've known this guy pretty much like my whole life, and just there's a whole bunch of examples I could give, but I'm not gonna put you on the spot. But that's how you are. You're also a very physical. You're a physically funny person, man. Like you get.
What are you gonna do?
You get into the stuff you do.
I don't know though. I feel like, you know, like I guess that's the essence of improv, but just like the no rules aspect of it, you know what I mean, is like something that I feel like I like try to, or I see in improv work. You know what I mean?
The best improv that I've ever seen is just like people who build really strong character relationships immediately. Like you walk out and there's like something going on, there's a conflict, or there's like a problem to be solved, and
they just attach to it,
and and they just like go on. And I mean, if you see bad improv, you know it, but it's so nice to see good improv too. It's like such a warm fuzzy feeling when you see people who are good at what they do and like they're killing it.
What's a character that you have?
Character?
Yeah.
Like a sketch character?
An improv character. If you have one. I don't know.
I don't have an improv character. I was very lucky to be on this women's comedy festival, the Bechtel Test Fest. It happens every February, and they've been doing it for 4 years now. But I got to play a character called Gladys Undertow, marine biology student that I made up. And I come out and I am wearing like a life vest and flippers and goggles and stuff, and I talk about scuba diving in the Schuylkill River like for my grad school project, and I find I find like an entire secret city underneath of Philadelphia, and I come out with like all these artifacts, and I'm like, there is a ghost city underneath of our city, and I need funding for more grad school research, and it's like a pitch for people to give me money.
I think I saw pictures of you in that get up.
Like
I was wondering what that was all about.
Sounds like a lady named Gladys.
Gladys
Crazy
Undertow.
person.
Yeah.
The first time I ever did it, I was backstage at Good, and I poured water on myself, and I came out like soaking wet.
That's a nice touch.
They were not pleased because I got water on the stage.
I'm not sure if you're a fan of Tim and Eric, but like
I am, yeah.
They're a part of their comedy that I love is they make the funniest names for people.
Yeah.
Like just like Steve Brule is a funny name.
Yeah.
Like they just all the fictional characters that they have are so funny.
They're just so good at what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They like just brought that niche and just slammed it.
Right. And they're from Temple too, which is pretty crazy. But like there's a shame about them at Temple.
Do you think?
At least I feel. I don't know. You're in film, so I feel like the film school doesn't talk about them because
they don't talk. No, they don't talk. You're right. They don't talk about them. I don't
heard-
know. It's weird. Well, I feel like Temple, like they got like a poster on the wall, but
the $1 billion movie one.
yeah. I feel like they're really not. They're not amping them up.
Right. I heard it was because when they're at Temple, they like broke all the rules and like just did a whole bunch of stuff they weren't supposed to. So like there's still like a reluctancy to like acknowledge them, whereas all these other figures they acknowledge right away.
If we're talking about Temple alums, I remember being a freshman at Temple. You know how Hall & Oates went to our school?
Yeah, it's crazy.
We convinced someone on our floor that they wrote the song "You Make My Dreams Come True" in Hardwick Hall. We're
That's
like,
really funny.
yeah, no, they were roommates here, and like the building was not even built when they were at school. And we were like, no, they wrote it like in this room, and they're
That's
like,
messed
no
up,
way.
man.
I'm gonna start spreading that rumor too.
That's messed up.
It's so funny to spread rumors.
Yeah. Speaking of like locations and comedy clubs and stuff, I'm not sure if you've ever been to Stress Factory in New Jersey, but that's where I went to go see Joey Diaz. So like my two favorite comics are Joey Diaz and Patrice O'Neal. And I remember specifically I was at this comedy club, and I'm not sure because you've been to a lot of comedy locations. Some places have gimmicks, and this one like, so obviously there's a stage, everybody has their own table, and your table seats like 4 people, but there are these cameras that look like security cameras, but like they're kind of like bigger, more noticeable. And the warm up before the opener came on was there's a screen, so there's a stage, the tables, and then a screen. And what they did is somebody was like remotely moving the cameras around from another room, just like around the audience, and it was showing the audience on the screen. And then like they would just zoom up on you and like make fun of you. Like it was ruthless
That's
too. It was
amazing.
ruthless. Like
I love
it was just
that.
like a bunch of like dudes sitting together. So they're obviously like gay jokes. Like so they just like start zooming in and making fun of these people. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I hope I was actually kind of like, yeah, because for a second like I'm a good sport. You know me.
Like,
you
bring
can
it
make
on,
fun of
bro.
me, but I was like,
Yeah.
bro, I don't know if I'm ready to be like chastised right now. And
My
it was
favorite comedian, and nonetheless,
it
he's
wasn't
probably just roast
it was
you
like
up.
somebody that worked for the house. It wasn't even the comic though. So I was just like, man, this is like a Stress Factory thing, I guess. And also they showed like viral videos, which I thought were kind of weird. So it was like it was like the camera zooming up on people and then like viral videos, and I'm like,
What a strange mix.
yeah, I was like, I don't know about all this, but
Rob Deerdeck comes out. He's like, welcome to ridiculousness.
right. The whole thing was just like a taping for ridiculousness. I didn't even know. But yeah, are there any places you know that have like comedic traditions or like something like that?
Comedic tradition.
I don't know. Maybe that was just like a thing at that place.
I mean, people getting roasted on the screen reminded me that the first time I was ever at Helium was on this show Digital Graffiti, where you go out and you do your set of jokes, and there are 2 screens on either side of you, and it's a group chat of other comedians roasting you as you're doing your jokes, and you're not allowed to look at the screens. Like the audience can see you getting roasted, and like pictures and just like shit talking and stuff. So the first time that I ever went up at Helium was trying to do my set while people are laughing at stuff being said about you. And I, halfway through my set, it was like a midnight show and I just didn't care. And a group of ladies got served another round of drinks, and it was like Coronas or something. and their faces were like horrified at the things that were being said about me, and I just like ditched my jokes, and I was like, are you guys okay? Like, is it really that bad? And they were like, it's that bad. And I was like, do you mind if I? And I just grabbed the lady's drink and I chugged a full beer on stage, and I was like, this is what I need.
Did you get to read it?
I did not get to read it.
Did you want to?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
I'm in suspense. That's crazy.
I did.
I feel like I would be like, man, like as much as like they're roasting, I feel like I would want to know what they're saying.
Same, dude. Same. I'd be so curious.
And I was out at the bar, like next to the performance space after the show, and I saw one of the comedians who was on the panel, and I was like, I'll kill you! I like charged him, and he was so scared. He leapt away like an antelope.
Right.
But the lady whose beer I drank, I bought her a beer after the show just so I wouldn't have like stolen a beer from her.
You have like all these experiences that most people wouldn't have because of comedy. Like it feels like you're actually living and you're getting to know people in a whole nother like level that most people don't get to experience.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's so fun, especially running a mic for close to 2 years now. Usually right now I'm at Ortlieb's, and it's fun to see new people, especially new women. I get so excited when I see new girls come out, and I'm just like, yo, this is like a safe space. You can feel comfortable here. Because open mics, like the nature of it is that people can say whatever they want. And sometimes you get like real creeps coming through, or just like nutbags who are like, I am just here to like say my manifesto.
Any type of open mic, like comedy or like, you know, music or anything really is just such a mixed bag. You know, you never know what you're gonna get, so that's just like the essence of it. Yeah. I can see what you're saying.
But it's cool seeing people come through who are new and like see them fail and then get better and work on it. And it's also cool just to like, if you gotta be there and see like everybody's set, you really appreciate the people who are good and like have tight jokes and stuff. It's relief sometimes.
Yeah. No, I definitely get the relief part. Believe me.
Is writing jokes for you like a 24/7 thing, or is it something that just comes up out of the blue, like when you're hanging with friends and something funny happens and you like, like taking out your phone and writing something down?
Or like you're about to go to bed and you're like, yo, that's funny. Like, how does that work for you?
I am bad at writing by myself. I can never like sit down with the intention to write. I can take like stuff from my phone and like organize it, but for the most part it's like I'll find something funny, or a friend of mine who doesn't do comedy will say something funny or make me think of a joke, and I'll be like, can I use that? One of like some of my best bits, my older brother and I just like go back and forth. He's given me oh my God, what is my one thing that women syncing up on their periods, the medical term for it is Bluetoothing.
Really?
He wrote that joke. He wrote that joke for me.
I'm like, what?
He was just like, did you know that that's called Bluetooth?
I thought that was like that might be slang in the medical community. I'm like, wow, that's pretty messed up.
Hopefully, but
Bluetoothing.
But I have been working on this new bit that I want to be like a long form, historically rich story about Betsy Ross. I want to tell everybody about the true hero that Betsy Ross is, because like, yeah, she's famous for sewing the flag, but she was also hot as shit, apparently.
Sexy ass
Betsy Ross was a little hottie bad.
You don't even think about it with a name like Betsy Ross. Like
hot. So I have this bit, Hot Betsy, where it was documented that the leader of the Hessian forces, like the mercenaries, they were instructed to take back the fort at Trenton, New Jersey. And the Hessians were supposed to go back, and then this leader was like, nah, man, I'm gonna try and get with Hot Betsy. I heard that her second husband died and she is single.
That's crazy.
And it delayed the forces, and Washington was able to take the fort because of Hot Betsy.
She got all her sewing skills from those skimpy outfits.
Right?
I like that, though. I like how there's a narrative to like the stuff you do. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So it's writing by yourself is hard. You get inspiration from other people. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
And workshops. I started going to a writing workshop with other lady comics recently, where it was just like totally organic. We were like, we want to get together and write and just like hang out and shoot the shit and like help each other. So
That's dope. That sounds
yeah.
like a pretty cool community. But your brother, he's not like a stand-up or anything like that. He's just a genuinely funny guy. Or...
He's the funniest person I know. I've
Yeah.
been living my life trying to be as funny as him, and it's nuts because he like did improv and stand up in college, and I started going to open mics because I wanted to like be cool like him. And then he stopped, and now he's in law school or whatever.
Was it school that made him stop?
No, I mean, he just like after college like naturally fell out of it, started working and stuff. But now he's the one who's like, how's comedy going?
That's cool.
You know?
Yeah, I'm trying to hop back in.
I know, right? Like he comes out to the shows and everything. He's my number one fan.
Yeah, and he tells you what to look out for, so it's like advantageous for you. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of comics who take this like very seriously, they're trying to get like to LA to like the Comedy Store. That's like the big one from what I understand. When last time I was in LA, I was trying to go see a show, and it was like only $20, which is pretty cool. But that's where like a lot of big people like get their starts, and you know they get like Netflix specials and stuff like that. Have you ever thought about like going out to LA or anything?
I've been there once, and I did get to do comedy out there. I was super lucky that like a friend of a friend had a show that I could hop on, and I went and I stayed with another comedian friend who took me to open mics. It was amazing.
She was an LA comic?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like she and I went to Philly. Becca Greenberg, she did Smash and everything with me. I love you, Becca. I'm gonna tag you in this. But so she like has been doing the scene out there, and so she took me to all of her spots, and LA was crazy popping for like just big names dropping in.
Well, they just have this huge scene in general, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, is it similar? I'm in the film industry, and it's like New York and LA. Is comedy similar in that sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we've been trying to make it like Philly, small time.
Well, Philly's going up there
player.
in general.
It is. It's
Yeah.
cool
For
to
like
see.
everything.
From what I hear though, the audiences are different. Like I feel like LA's an easier, more open-minded crowd. Like they're open to different types of comedy. Maybe like, you know, they're not as cold and distant. I feel like Philly is like, you got to make us laugh. Like, it's got to be funny. Like, they're more aggressive. And I feel like New York is like, that's the big time one. Because all New York comics do are like, they pick on people. You know, like, that's the New York style of comedy. So
Be an
have
asshole.
you noticed that? Yeah, exactly. Like, they just immediately just nail people.
Yeah.
Was LA, did you feel more of like a vibe? Like, okay, like, this is more chill. I can try out some stuff.
Yeah, LA mics were awesome. They were friendly and very open. There were like smoking bars, you know, you could go smoke pot in a basement
Right.
and like tell jokes and stuff. That was my favorite. But I've never been to open mics in New York. I've only ever done one show in New York, and that is like I got to be on Hey Guys, and the headliner for that show was a writer for Last Week Tonight, Josh Gondelman.
Cool.
And that to me is like the biggest credit. I was like, oh my God, I opened for a late night writer. You know, I thought it was so cool. And he was the nicest dude too.
Yeah.
He's just like a mild mannered guy.
Yeah.
But I have yet to go and try open mics in New York. That's been a goal of mine lately, to try and get up there, because it's close. It's much closer than I think. It feels like a world away, but it's like so easy to get there.
It is. Yeah. That's why Philly's such a cool location. What were you about to say?
I was gonna say, are you like, you say you know you do stand up quite often. Are you getting booked in Philly? Are you doing a lot of open mics? Is the goal to be booked, or like, you know, like, are you getting paid sometimes? Or,
That's
you know,
the question.
yeah. Is that like, have you know, got some gigs here and there, or what's like, you know, what's going on? Like, is that the goal, or do you want to be a comedian, or?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to have it be my living, like,
Yeah.
you know, to make a living off of it.
Has it been prosperous at all? I mean, I'm like a DJ on the side, but like I've had like a few gigs where I've gotten paid, and it's just like such a great feeling. Even like, you know, 50,
Yeah.
$100 here and there, I'm like, yeah.
Oh my God, if I get paid $10 for doing a
Yeah.
set, I'm like, one of my favorite comics, Chanel Ali, who is like she's an already freaking famous dude, but she is a Philly comic who moved to New York, and she has this great bit about if you spend money that you made telling jokes, it's like money you made with your mind, you know, you just made these words and
Yeah.
like money
Right.
appeared, you
Yeah,
know, that's such a
yo,
cool feeling.
That's, yeah.
But it's always, I mean, like, I feel like this shouldn't be the standard for me, but like, it's always a pleasant surprise when I get paid. Cool. And I have a monthly show where I, you know, there's like a cover charge, and I'm able to pay all the comics that I book, like a little bit. But yeah, the most that I ever got paid for a gig was $100 to do stand up at someone's birthday party in their house.
Yo,
it was like the craziest thing, where it was literally like this for 30 people, no microphone, no stage, like just telling jokes to a group of people, and it was so fun.
Well, yeah,
really?
Yeah. It was amazing.
I'd be more nervous doing that.
It was
I don't know.
nerve-wracking.
I feel like I would too.
I'd be more nervous doing that.
I got there and I was like, oh my God, I'm about to get murdered. Like, they're going to take my kidneys.
Right.
Like, they don't want to hear jokes. They want to kill me.
Right. Because with going to a comedy place, it's like, all right, this is a place where we tell jokes.
Yeah.
Like, the atmosphere is like, it's all right, this person's joking. But like when you go in someone's house, that's a whole nother thing. Like, how do you transition from talking to someone casually to just going up?
Yeah, the cat's walking around.
Right. Cats walking around. The house phone goes off. You know what I'm saying? Like
pizza guy's at the door.
Yeah, the air conditioner kicks in. Like all this craziness. Pizza guy.
It was nuts.
So that's really cool. But yeah, I listen again to a lot of comedic podcasts, and most of them talk about the same thing. It's just like, it's getting paid here and there is kind of rare, but people do it for a long period of time. Like Joey Diaz's story, I keep referencing him, but he was like 20 years, and he was just kind of like in between locations, sometimes sleeping in his car. Mm-hmm. All of them had a job on the side. And I feel like in the 80s, comedy was the path to get on TV. Like, people were like, yo, I'm going to make it big and get my own sitcom, because sitcoms were like the thing in like the 90s, like, you know, Seinfeld, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all that stuff, even though Will Smith is a rapper first. Mm-hmm. But now it's like comedy for the sake of comedy. Mm-hmm. And Netflix is killing it because they have all these specials. Like, Netflix has so many specials, and they're amazing. Mm-hmm. Like Tom Segura, like all these really, really great ones. So your thing is like comedy for the sake of comedy. Like stand-up specifically, not a skit series or anything like that, like stand-up.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love sketch. I love playing characters ever since Smash, and I'll jump at the opportunity to, like, be cast in something. I'm going to be in something at the end of the month that's just, you know, somebody's one-off sketch, and they needed someone to play the husband, and I will always take any opportunity to cross-dress. I love playing dudes. The first Smash sketch that I was ever in, it was originally supposed to be called Danny's Magic Farts, and the guy playing Danny dropped out, and they switched the genders, and they made it Daniela's Magic Farts. And like, I remember getting cast in it, and my dad, I told him like the premise, and he was like, no, oh my goodness, I cannot, like, toilet humor. And then it was finally done and edited, and I showed it to him, and he couldn't get over how funny it was. Like, he loved it.
You're
just like,
fart jokes never get old.
Never.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought it was funny that me and Steve just laughed because it just the title was farts. Just like, what? It's the bizarreness of it. But it's funny that you bring up your dad was like saying like no to you doing toilet humor, and like that's a pretty mild thing in the comedic world. Like, how do your parents feel about you being a comic then?
They love it.
Yeah
They really like encourage me to, you know, speak my mind and be out there. They, you know, their main thing is like they just want me to be safe, and I'll tell them about, you know, crazy shit happening at open mics and like harassers coming through, and like you really got to be able to hold your own and like stand up to people. But they love it. I mean, especially when they came out to Punchline, that was so nice because it was really like a real crowd of people, and I did like a 10-minute set, and I was just like, this is it, like I want to do this, you know. But
you have something to show them, like, look, mom and dad, I got it, like, check out this audience.
And they're like, our son's gonna be a lawyer, you can do whatever.
Yo, that's crazy.
You can do whatever you want, you can do your skits. It kills me when people call it skits.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
Skits.
What part of you just dies?
What's the longest set you've ever had? Or that you've ever done?
Probably 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
So,
That's a wow.
Probably by accident, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Like just not seeing the light and just sort of like riffing and being like, no, what else can I talk to you about?
So you were killing.
I was killing.
Yeah.
I was killing in my mind.
All right. I listen to like hours, and like somebody does like an hour. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man,
Well, that's why I asked, is because you know all the Netflix specials, particularly, are always at least an hour. You know,
an hour and a half or
Yeah,
like an
around-
hour.
around,
yeah,
you know.
that's so true.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, how do you do that for an hour? Like,
I'm impressed by people who can do like headlining 40-minute or an hour
Yeah.
sets.
Yeah, anything above 30 minutes, you know, you're really breaking that point where you're just, you know, you're in it. You know, if you have a 30-minute set or longer, you're in it. It's not some short thing where you could just dip out if it's not going well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to see Nicole Byer at Helium recently, and she is one of my favorite podcasters. She's like probably top 5 favorite comedians, especially from Girl Code. Was the first place I ever saw her, but I saw her live and in the flesh at Helium Philly, and my heart was just singing the entire time because she's so funny, she's so expressive, and it flew by. I didn't even realize that she was talking for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
you know, just about her life
Right.
and telling jokes and stuff. And if you can, like, if your butt starts to fall asleep while you're watching and you're like, you know, your legs are cramping and you're just like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? But she transported me. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right?
Was she like a story comic where she tells real life stories? I'm
Yeah,
saying because
she-
of her life, right?
Yeah, she told a ton of stories about odd jobs she had before comedy.
Yeah.
That's an awesome source. And then just like being a working comic. I feel like people, if you're traveling and telling jokes, you're getting new jokes every day.
Yeah.
Just from how people like talk to you
Your
after
interactions,
shows.
right.
Yeah. And just like weird stuff that happens to you.
And the struggle, like
And the struggle.
like that's why like all these hilarious people, it seems that they've been through so much like turmoil and bad stuff, and they had to find a way to adjust. A lot of them, I mean, not all of them.
Yeah.
But are there any personal stories that you tell that you would like to share, or just kind of at least dip into?
Of struggle.
No. I mean, just like, I don't know, like
Yes,
a
the
comedic
most
story you tell
struggle.
on stage, or a story of struggle. Because from what I hear, like you're more of like you're manufacturing these concepts, like the Betsy Ross and you know this grad student who has to do a project. But is there any like story that's funny in your life that you share, or something
Yeah,
notoriety?
Oh God, I love pulling stories from my childhood and like going to Catholic school.
That left quite an impression on you. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just, and like I can immediately find the person in the audience who also went to Catholic school because they're like, yeah.
Yeah, been there.
I remember I talk a lot about having to wear uniforms, and we didn't get to wear our own clothes. And we got a very serious talk in the 4th grade about how when we did get dress down days and we didn't have to wear our uniforms, our religion teacher, didn't want us wearing, the girls specifically, she was like, the girls should not be wearing midriff tops, like that early 2000s trend to a bunch of 4th graders. And she was giving us, and it stuck in my mind so much because she said, God wouldn't want you to wear a midriff top because it exposes the most beautiful, sacred part of you that he made with so much love, your womb.
Bad vibes.
And we were just like, what?
Yo.
And like in hindsight, I was just like, you made me think that when I was walking down the street years later and like men catcall you, that they're thinking, ooh, that womb.
Yo.
Nice ass womb.
That's strange.
Get that womb.
Yeah, I'm always looking at that womb.
Trying to get that womb. It's such a gross word too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, ugh. Like, I just got weirded
know.
out, like, hearing that.
No, there's so much
It reminds
material.
me of a really funny but gross name for a cock. It's called the womb broom.
Yo, who says that?
I read it online.
Steve does.
From what era is that?
I read it online. It was on Reddit.
That
It's a good one, isn't it?
womb broom. Makes me think of bristles.
That's so strange.
In
Yeah.
Catholic school, my Catholic school teacher
You
called.
went there too?
I went to St. Ephraim's down the
Nice.
street. Yeah. Oh yes, I was there. I know the experience. Yeah, he called us little shits.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
like the priest?
Nah, it was like our teacher. Yeah.
Little shit.
It's like, you little shits. You always cause in trouble.
He was like some.
Hey, pull us aside. Yeah. when I knew it, I was like, all right, this is not for me.
He was like some crouchy old man.
Yeah, he was the grouchiest guy I've ever met.
Everyone knows like a grouchy teacher growing up, man.
Yeah,
It's
like,
just
what's your deal, man?
Yeah, dude, like you hate kids. Like what's going on
Yeah,
here,
dude.
man? Let's just be
We're
honest.
just kids. We're just trying to be kids.
Did you guys get like hit in Catholic school? I've never been. Like, is that
No,
a thing?
we didn't have like the nuns with the rulers and everything.
I didn't have that either.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Yeah. Steve.
Whip me into shape.
What the heck? I do. That's probably my favorite thing. I love hearing people's stories. Like, I feel there's a huge explosion with Kevin Hart. Like, obviously, that was a very big thing, and he became huge. And I think a lot of it was due to just like his stories. Like, I'd say that was like the strongest part of his comedy. And stories you have to exaggerate on stage, right? You have to. And when you act it out physically, it becomes a whole new thing. And then you become known for it. Like, again, Bert Kreischer. He has this Russian mob story that like defined his career, like, and he tells it at every show. So he'll do a set, and at the very end of the set, like it's 45 minutes. He's like, all right, now I'm gonna do the story for everybody that wants to hear it. Like it's a thing that's so typical. Like he prefaces it by, some of you have probably heard this before, but a lot of people want to hear me tell it again, and he does it at every single show. Like it's so crazy. So some of those stories become just like synonymous. That's wild.
If you have something that you know works and that people, if you're like at that level that you know they want to see it, why not?
Right.
You know?
But it's like the closing act of like it's your best song. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what I compare it to. So it's like we want to hear the hits, but at the same time, they're trying to showcase their new intellectual property. Like Andrew Dice Clay. I went to Andrew Dice Clay, and of course the nursery rhymes. That's like the big thing for him. And it was the same exact thing. He went through all the new stuff. He's like, all right, now I'm gonna do nursery rhymes, and it's weird because I almost sense a reluctancy when they're doing it. They're like, all right, I know you guys want to hear this. And everyone's like, yeah, like they're so jacked up to hear it. You know,
you do have to be careful of that in comedy, getting tired of your own jokes and like sort of just going through the motions of like being sick. And if you're not into it, or you sound too robotic, like you're rehearsing it, that's another thing that the audience can tell.
Yeah.
And I want to be excited about the stories I'm telling. I want to like connect with people and be like, this insane thing happened to me, and I want to see how you react to it.
Yeah. I'm all about that too. Like energy. I'm into high energy comics. Like,
because like they're watching you, but I'm watching them, and I want to see like the parents be like horrified. I want to make some old lady like clutch her pearls.
Yeah,
Just be
yeah.
like, "Oh!"
I was listening to Elephant in the Room today, and Patrice said that the secret to comedy is half the room is laughing and the other half is horrified. He's like, I don't want everybody laughing. He's like, there should be some people that are horrified. He's like, because that means, he's like, that means I'm doing my thing,
Yeah.
But speaking of that, have you ever been in a place like, I think the most famous outburst is obviously the Kramer at Laugh Factory, where he just like went on like a tangent with racial slurs. That was nuts.
That was
Has there ever
crazy.
been a moment where you've witnessed like somebody go too far and people are like, oh, and like something like that happened?
Too far.
Maybe not. I feel like that's not too common nowadays.
No, I mean, I've in the time that I've been helping run a showcase at Milk Boy South Street, we've definitely had like, especially sometimes like out of town comics where like somebody knows somebody and they're like coming in from New York and we want to give them a spot. There have been times where they've just like yelled at the audience, like people aren't listening, and instead of like trying to like charm them and draw them in, they'll just roast them and it'll backfire.
Ooh.
And
'Cause it's not
that's
funny.
always the worst.
yeah, like when they try to roast and then everybody's just like, yo, fuck you.
Yeah.
Who are you? And it's tough in that, like, because it's a free show, it's in a bar, and people, if they're not there to see the comedy, they don't want anything to do with you.
Right.
You know?
I feel like that comes from fear though.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason why they're going so hard. It's because they're like, I will not bomb, and it's just bang, bang, bang. They just start fighting everybody.
That's the stuff that's so, you can just see it so easily too as an audience member. That's stuff that drives you away is when you see somebody like they can't take it, they can't take the
Right.
defeat.
It's this desperation.
Yeah.
Have you ever been heckled? Does somebody like heckle you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, man.
Well,
yeah.
do you remember like a particular one that you're like, oh, yo, this guy?
Nothing really stands out in my mind. Mostly just like people trying to throw their own punchlines in or like throw in their own commentary, and you're just like, wait,
no.
what? No,
Yeah.
please, this isn't like a two-way street. Like, I'm trying to tell you things. I can't think of anything specific, but anytime that someone like derails you, you really try to just like find your place again and like keep, you know, driving forward. And it does, like, it makes you a better comic if you mess up and you're like, okay, how can I not do that again?
Right.
You know? I remembered a tangent, but now I can't anymore.
No, that's cool. I just figured that, like, again, that's another thing that I think would be hard for me because you have to be on go mode, like conflict mode. I was in a film comedy class at Temple. Like, I have media studies and production as my degree, which is the easiest degree you could do at Temple. Like, it's super easy.
Have
like,
you tried advertising?
Well, that's easy.
Oh my God. It's advertising is for people who weren't talented enough for Tyler and who weren't smart enough for Fox.
That's what
They
media studies
put
and
the
production
art
is.
Have you guys
business
tried
kids.
film?
So, bro, dude, I thought my major was always like people that didn't want to like get into film. Like, they would do media studies and production because that's easier than film. Like, I don't have to have a thesis or anything, bro. Like, I write papers and that's it.
Thesis.
You didn't? I thought film students have to have like a thesis
Nah,
film.
bro, you don't need shit.
Really? Oh, bro, I thought you had to make like one final movie. Like, this is my
Nah,
outlook.
man.
Oh, okay, cool.
My outlook.
Chalked.
I had a class called film comedy, and I'm not even kidding. We watched funny movies and we talked about what made them funny in different styles of comedy. That was it. And the assignments were like 4 papers.
Were
Like,
they good?
They were okay. Like, some of them were really abstract. Like, some of them were like, you familiar with the genre of video called YouTube poop? Where it's just like insane editing. Steve knows.
Yeah.
Where it's just like an editing that makes someone stutter over and over again. So like we went from like super abstract to like Step Brothers, like and everything between. And we were like in one of those auditorium classes in Annenberg where there's like a big screen.
Yeah, I
And
had
that-
those classes.
And at the very end of the class, our professor was like, "Yo, for extra credit." And people needed extra credit because not a lot of people showed up. They were just like, "Oh, in this movie, I'm gonna slip out." So like he would notice or whatever and take attendance points off. He was like, "For extra credit, if you want to come up here on stage, well, down. You know how like all the seats and like the stage is down there. If you want to come down here and do stand-up comedy, he's like, I'll give you guys extra credit. He's like 10 minutes each. You know." He's like, if you guys just want to try it.
Did
It's
you
an
do
awesome
it?
extra credit.
No,
You didn't do it?
no, guys, listen. It's senior year. I was an RA, bro. I'm
You already had that, eh?
applying to jobs every day. I got the Temple TV stuff to
That's
do.
true.
I was just like, see ya. I just left that class. But I remember I was like, that is such a cool way to give extra credit.
That
He's
is a
like,
great
if you
way.
guys want to try. And there was like 60 people in this class. He's like, if you want to try, like, come on down here. Like, let's see if
Did
you're
you
funny.
stay for anybody?
No, man. No. It just,
he was
Good
like,
looking
I'm
out.
out.
it just stuck in my mind. I thought about it because like the thing is, it sounds arrogant because like I'm not a stand-up guy in the stand-up world, but I feel like I've had moments where I'm like, I think I could talk about this. Like, this would be funny, you know? Like, I had a whole thing where like somebody walked in on me like going to the bathroom, and just like the awkwardness that happens. Like, you know, like people always pretend like they didn't see it, like they cover their face and like they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I thought like maybe I could turn that into a bit, you know? So that point though, when he said that, got me thinking like, what in my life could I stand up on stage and tell people that they would think would be funny, you know? And I feel like that's where a lot of people start. But yeah, it was a super, super easy class. I gotta maintain that. Media studies and production is the easiest, man. For real, the easiest.
We are a commercial for Temple University right now. Just like, you want an easy degree?
Yo.
Here's 3 options.
Except you don't want an easy degree though, because then you're struggling, right?
That's true.
I don't know, bro. It's all about how you play it,
You
man.
struggle
It is how you
bussin'?
play it. What?
You struggle bussing?
I'm always my life is a struggle. But
I don't know, bro. You're pretty. This guy has like a music label that did you start it with people or now?
yeah,
you're-
me and my
yeah.
2 friends start a record label. We DJ and stuff.
Hell yeah.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of stuff I relate to with being like when the spotlight's on you, you know, it's DJing in itself is all about reading a crowd and manipulating the crowd as best that you can and feeding off what they're feeding off of. And you know, if you're doing what you're doing, it's not working for the crowd, then you know who are you doing it for? You know what I mean?
Did you ever DJ at Pub Web at Temple, or did you go to Pub Web?
Well, my friends threw parties there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My I met my boyfriend through stand up, and we found out that when I was at Temple, he was DJing at Pub Web.
Oh, yeah?
Like, he was a Temple student as well, and I was just like, you probably were DJing while I was drinking there.
Yeah, just you turning up, dancing.
Yeah.
You guys didn't even know each other at the time.
No.
That's funny.
We probably crossed paths like a bunch of times, and then we didn't even meet until 2016, like at an open mic in Manayunk, you know?
That's interesting.
Completely random.
Yeah, I bump into Temple people all the time.
They're everywhere.
The thing about Temple people though is everybody's doing something on the side. Like that's what I love about that student population. Like you with your music, you know what I'm saying? You with like Smash and like your comedic endeavors, me with the stuff I do. And like everybody you talk to is like, yeah, I got a clothing line, you know what I'm saying? Like I sell my art like on the street.
I feel like that's the question these days anyway. Is like, you know, not what's your side hustle? What
Right.
what are you really about? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. You got
everybody's got something that they're trying to make a profit off and live. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
what are you filling your time with on the side?
I feel like that's just especially present in Philadelphia and just East Coast urban populations, man. Is everybody's got something they're doing. Like, you guys remember the people that used to sell turtles?
Yes.
Like
Small
Yes, I
turtle?
do.
Yeah.
That was the hustle right there, bro. The one day I must have seen 3 people came back with turtles. Like,
Right.
yeah, I got this turtle. I was like, where's everybody getting these turtles from? You know, what's up
4
with this?
turtles.
Yeah,
That's
seriously.
what I was thinking too. Like that turtle probably just got put in a bucket
Yeah.
with like 1 inch of water.
Yeah, I like, what's the statistic for them making it like past 1
That's
year?
so sad, man. I almost don't want to think about it. It's like these baby red ear sliders, man.
Oh,
They
yeah.
need to go into water. But yeah, everybody had their own thing that they were doing. So it's cool. I mean, that's just like I've talked about this before in episodes, but like college is like it's a place where you're trying to get a degree to go get something that will make you money or something you're passionate about. But at the same time, like you have this whole other life of stuff that you're doing. And for me, it was always like I wanted to devote more time to my personal projects. Like, and it would kill me. It would literally kill me inside that I couldn't do that, you know?
Yeah.
And when I got into the work world, it did get a little bit better. But that's always been like my struggle and my balance is like, yo, I gotta stay true to like what's in my heart, but also like pursue a career. And I guess the end goal for you too is like to merge the both. Like you said, your end goal is you want to do comedy for a living.
Yeah.
And you said this thing which really struck me is like you're getting paid for your ideas. And I feel like that's the best way to live. Like something that came out of your head, like you're giving people and they enjoy it and like they give you money back. Like, that's such a super dope thing. And like, you probably feel the same way with music because you also make like you're making original music, you know, and that's going to become more and more prevalent for you. And it's just like I feel like that's the optimum way to live is like I make this thing. Like for me, comic books, I eventually want to sell my comics. Like I make this thing and I trade my ideas for money and like that's it. I just get paid to bring my ideas out. That's the way to do it, man.
I love voting on your what should happen next Instagram
yeah, the
stories. You
McKnight-
gotta do more of
The
those.
McKnight, yeah. Thank you so much. People have been asking for that to come back. I've just been really busy. But yeah, I got some really interesting comments on that, and some people like were offended that this one like it was actually pretty
You
funny.
offended people?
Yeah, man, because like the McKnight does like this hostile takeover of Hellland, and people were like, "Oh, like is this colonialism?" And I'm like, "Nah, I mean it's fake," and also it's like Hellland, it's you know, but yeah. So McKnight was fun. Instagram stories are cool, especially now that they have that feature where you can ask people questions. I was gonna do this thing like where I'm just like, what do you want to happen next? Like instead of voting, and then just people put in, and I pick like one of the options.
That
So
was how I developed the Gladys Undertow character.
Oh, yeah?
I said I made a post and I was like, "What's the craziest thing I could find in the Schuylkill?" And there were like 50 comments of just insane things. And I took that and I wrote the monologue. And
Yeah.
I was just like, look at all this shit I found. I crowdsourced that act, you know?
yeah.
It can be useful.
That's really cool. Yeah, Instagram's adding a whole nother layer. And I feel like the Vine comedians like that have migrated to like Instagram. Like there's Instagram comedy accounts that have like millions of followers, and it's literally like a minute video of like people talking about their day or just something they went through. Like I really love Chris D'Elia's Instagram. Like I think it's so funny.
When he makes fun of Drake's Ratchet Happy Birthday song.
Oh my gosh.
That video.
His music bits are so funny. Like when he, I'm not sure if you saw the Eminem one where he was talking about how like Eminem can rhyme things that like don't rhyme together. I would totally butcher it. But my favorite thing is like his tweets. Like that's another thing that comedians are using nowadays, like Twitter. How he like just like destroyed Logan Paul and like all those people. Like I love Instagram comedians. It's like a guilty pleasure of mine. And there's
It's
a lot
so
of really
easy.
good ones.
It's just like little bite size.
Yeah,
like
it's a
you
good
can-
medium.
You can watch as much as you want.
Yeah. But there's like this weird trend going on where people are considering pranks to be comedy. And then some of these things aren't even pranks.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen I'm Tyrone?
No.
Okay, so there's this guy that goes around Philadelphia, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan. I've always been wanted to be in one of his videos. Although what he does, excuse me, is pretty messed up. He So he'll go around Philadelphia with like a guy on the phone just taping him, and he'll look for somebody who's smoking. And he'll smack the cigarette out of their hand, and he'll be like, "Smoke is bad for you, bro." And, like, he's
my
huge, like he's
God.
jacked. He's like, "You need to stop that right now." And like people get so scared, like, all right, chill. And so like,
Dude, that is so funny.
it's really great because somebody will have like their hand outside a window of like a car just chilling, and he like smokes it. He hits the smoke, the cigarette out of their hand, and be like, "Smoke is bad for you." And they try and open the door, and he holds it shut. So like they're trying to get out. Yeah, it's really great. But obviously, like he could get a gun pulled on him. Like some people try to fight him. Like it's all very real, and it's like. So I feel like there's a whole new genre of comedy because of the internet, of people going in and being like disrespectful in grocery stores and like throwing milk all over the ground.
I hate that stuff, man. Like I love the cigarette bit because I think
Yeah.
it's funny because
It's
it's
hilarious.
harmless. It's a
Yeah.
harmless prank. I cannot stand pranks that like ruin property or like
Yeah.
ruin somebody's
Destructive.
day. Yeah, they're the
Yeah.
worst, man.
Yeah. Like there was this kid that had a good concept, but he went about it the wrong way. He called himself the milkman, and he just dressed up as a cow, and he would go into convenience stores and be like, "Where's the milk at? Where's the milk at?" Like and like they'd be like, "Yo, like,
See, like that's
already,
hilarious.
already it's a funny premise,
Yeah.
but then like he would totally take it out of control because he would go find the milk and like pour it out on the ground and,
And
pour
yeah,
it on
and
his
that's
head.
the point. That's the point where you're just like you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And then this person's saying like, "Yo, I paid the owner of the store back," but it's like, bro, somebody had to clean it up, and I know you didn't clean it
Yeah.
up. Like you just left, and that's so it's weird because the eye of viral attention has become so profitable for people that like people are willing to do insane out of pocket things like tattoo their face, like steal people's phones, and like that's what world star hip hop has become. Is like this whole shock culture of humor.
Yeah.
And it's weird for me because when I see it, I know that a lot of it is staged. But like kids are seeing this like, yo, this is what I gotta do to be famous, like, or be a comedian. Like I gotta smack somebody in the head and run away. Like that's not what comedy's about.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
weird.
I'm much more a fan of like the face to face, like open mic show
Yeah.
interaction, like somebody, because that's it's nuts how you can sit at an open mic and you just get like a snapshot of what's going on that day in
Yeah.
people's lives. Like you just get this super cut of like people's takes on the news and like current events and stuff. It's crazy, and I much prefer that to like watching online stuff.
You were a big fan of like the Daily Show and stuff like
Oh
that.
my god, yeah.
That
I
was,
was I was raised on the Daily Show and the Colbert Report. Stephen
Yeah.
Colbert is like my number one. Like
your
I
inspiration.
love that man. Yeah, I went to the Colbert Report once in 2014, and we got to sit front and center, and
Whoa.
he talked to me.
And he talked to
And
me.
he talked to me.
And guess what? He talked to
He
me.
talked to me. He took one of my questions, and he was so sweet. And I just like walked away from that, and I was like, I want to be a guest on your. Like, I want to be famous enough to be on his show.
Yeah.
You
Seems like
know?
he's the man.
He is the man.
That's really cool.
Yeah, man.
I really like Dave Chappelle, the Chappelle Show when I was a kid. Like I thought that was really good. Like
Cutting edge.
yeah,
Like,
I don't think there's anything that's been like as close as that was. You know, like to just taking over almost. Like I thought that was so popular for what it was. Like there was just a huge just boom of people like being really really into that show. The Chappelle Show was awesome, and that's like one thing that really inspired me.
you remember the one newscaster, the white guy that he would play, like
Yeah.
the white guy newscaster? I remember like Whiteface was so not like well done on that. He just looks like a ghost. He's just like all
Yeah,
powdery
yeah.
and like
He looks
a
like super
blob.
scary, like really scary.
And you look back at that and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it was but it was so funny. Like I love that. And he's like a comedian who did like racial humor, and it was always like super funny, like just really really good. And it was one of those things that kind of like brings down the boundaries of like race and stuff, because it just gave everyone a chance to like laugh at like differences and really like congregate around that. And that's what I really liked about his comedy before he had that whole like disappearance. And it's weird because we had a whole class in film comedy about like why he went away and stuff like that. The class was super interesting. But yeah, he was another one of my favorites. Have you ever heard of Eleanor Kerrigan? All right, she was like a Philly comic that kind of started here and was gaining some traction. Then she kind of blew up, and now she's in LA and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm really big into watching comedy styles evolve over time. Like Chappelle's stand up now is like a lot different. It has more of a, maybe I shouldn't say a lot different. It has a different vibe than it did back then. Like I feel like he was way more playful back then. And
He
now,
I can see that. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
he's like grumpy and like jaded.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm here to tell you like the system. You know?
Yeah.
He's like, listen to me.
and it's funny because I don't think that served him like as well. He's still a killer, obviously. Like Dave Chappelle's hilarious, but
And
like
he's jacked. Like he went away and he's like jacked now.
yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, if you're a comic full time, like you do shows and you do TV appearances, but I feel like you would have a lot of free time. So like you'd have time to just like go to the gym or just pick up a hobby. You know, they have this whole life that's like very alien to us. But you're right. He's a little more militant now. But see, I like that because that's what he wants to do. Like that's authentically him. And like even though I would prefer the old stuff, like I like that he's changed and that's
He's like being
something
himself.
he wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about authenticity. Like I'm not a fan of like catering. We just went over how like you got to do that sometimes, but I'm all about like this is what I'm thinking now. This is what I am now, and like evolving and getting up in that stage with everything, man. Like when you start DJing, there's probably stuff that you did in the beginning that like you don't do now. I don't know.
It's all about being authentic. If you're not authentic, then what's
Right.
the point?
Yeah. People
Yeah.
can smell it, you know?
Yeah.
They can tell.
Yeah. That's with everything. It's not even like whether it be music, comedy, or just talking to somebody.
Yeah. Were you ever afraid to like DJ or anything like that? Were you like, man?
I'm nervous every time.
Every time you're nervous?
Oh, yeah.
Still?
Well, when I start, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta like feel myself out and stuff, but I mean, I'm the same way. Like when I you said you did that one show for like a group of people in like a house. That would like really make me nervous. Some sharp Parmesan.
I was gonna say you look like you're struggling, bro.
Very sharp. Anyways,
let me try it, man. So you're not alone out here, bro.
it's sharp.
My dad was like, "You gotta try this cheese out." I was like,
Yeah, no, it's good.
"That was his line."
It's good
He was like,
cheese.
"You gotta try this cheese, man." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yo, dads are funny.
They are. I'm a fan of dad humor. We'll get into that.
What I was gonna say was, I could see myself like doing like decently well on a stage too, just because I become a different person when the spotlight's on me. I'm almost forced. I force myself to be like my best open self, and I'm like jolted with all this energy in like a good way. You know what I mean? It brings out my best version, and yeah, that's what happens to me when I'm on stage, like DJing, just because I have to. I have to do it, or else I will fail, and I don't want to be that guy. So
Right.
And once you get that like positive reinforcement from
People-
the
yeah.
audience where they cheer and they're feeling you and you get like that connection and you're like, okay.
And I think it works for me because it does come from an authentic place. I do it because I'm enjoying it, and if you're
also naturally very extroverted, man. And like, as long as I've known you, you've never minded being the center of attention. Like,
yeah, well, I'm more humble about it now. When I was younger, I would just do stuff, but now I choose to do things.
that's a key. Also, this is very sharp.
Sharp,
Yeah, it is pretty strong.
yeah, sharp Parmesan.
I wouldn't recommend it. Erin's making a face like she wants to stay far away from this stuff. But yeah,
You look like you need some Parmesan right now.
I like dad humor. I like dad jokes. Like, dad jokes are just, they're dry, like super dry, but there's just like a little bit of moisture in it. And you're like, man, come on. Like, what? You gotta give me more than that, dad. But you laugh at it because of the attempt. Like, that's always been the dad joke for me. It was like the attempt to be funny. Or what they think is funny is hilarious.
I love Bat Dad, especially the guy who's just like, do the dishes.
Wow, that's super. Man, I haven't watched that in a while.
Oh my god, Bat Dad always makes me laugh.
Yeah. Your dad's pretty funny, Steve.
My dad,
Yeah.
Tell us about your dad, Steve.
my dad is definitely a character. He's just so, I don't know. He's just so to the point with things, like unbelievable. Like he just says what's on his mind, and he doesn't hold back.
I have a dad story. My dad has inspired a lot of my stand-up because he has worked in public health for his whole career, like with the CDC, specifically in later tuberculosis, but he started out in STDs, and he was like an STD detective back in the 80s, and he would have like syphilis cases, and he had to track down people's partners and like close these cases. And he told me this one story of like, yeah, it was nuts. I mean, like, it was before, like, I guess digital records, and it was a lot more old fashioned, but
That's crazy.
He was down in Tennessee, and he had this one person who he kept on trying to track down. He had to take a blood sample and make sure that they didn't have syphilis. And he finally was just like, dude, let me just like come to your place. Like, I'll come and get this like blood sample and stuff. And he goes to this person's apartment. It's like 8 a.m. or something. The guy's in a bathrobe, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, like take my blood. So he like does the what'd you call it, the thing around the arm,
It's like a compression.
The arm thingy.
yeah, the arm thingy. And he's drawing the blood, and my dad looks up at this guy's face, and his eyes are fluttering and rolling back into his head. And he passes out. My dad catches this guy. His robe falls open.
Yo.
And the guy's neighbor comes out and sees my dad like holding this naked, passed out man. He's like, I can explain what's happening.
Yo, that's pretty crazy.
It's just like nuts stuff like that where he just like tells me these stories, and I'm like, how was that a real career? Like, you were STIPI.
I was about to say, like, I'm surprised that's not a movie yet. Like, that premise of like some
Right?
dude being an STD.
I'm writing it.
I was gonna say, you better keep down their lock and key, because that's a pretty good premise right there. You tell those stories on stage.
Yeah, but he would have to like, he investigated STD outbreaks in men's prisons specifically. Like, there would be populations where there would be like a syphilis outbreak, and the COs would just be like, well, there's no contact between anybody, and they'd be like, okay, like, let's actually interview people and see what's going on.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my God, I can never say that I had a bad day at the office because I didn't have to tell inmates that they had STDs.
That's
you
crazy.
know?
That's pretty wild. I heard there was this comic I'm really into called Michael Jr. And one of his things that he did, one of his specials, was he went to like a prison and did stand up at a prison, like to make prisoners laugh. That's got to be so hard. Like, that's got to be so tough to make people that, like, some people are in there for their
Yeah,
entire
I feel like
life.
that'd be a good crowd.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
My
I mean, it depends what kind of jokes you're going after. You know, you can't be soft with them, but
my older brother works in a prison. He's a parole officer.
Really?
Yeah, so he's got clients, inmates and stuff, and he has this one really funny story about, they have an art mural program where inmates like paint murals inside, and it's like art therapy, and somebody snuck gang signs into a mural of flowers, like in the vines. Like, somebody painted gang signs in the mural was done, and a couple weeks went by, and then my brother was passing, and he was like, God damn it.
I pictured the gang member explaining his painting. He's like, yeah, man, we got butterflies, you know what I'm saying, vines, Latin kings over here. You feel me?
So, like, you have to be
Latin Kings, what's
so
up?
creative
Back to the
and
flowers.
diligent.
You're back to the flowers.
That's so creative to me. I'm like, well, did you let him keep it? You
Right.
didn't paint over it, did you?
Yeah. My survival tactic for prison, I would try and be a tattoo artist right away. I'd be like, yo,
smart.
look, I got a pen. I got a little lighter I snuck in here. Don't ask how I got in here. We're going to burn this ink up. I'm going to tattoo
that's
up.
not a bad way to go about it.
That'd be my
in that
sur-
respect.
That'd be my thing. I'd be like, yo, what gang you part of, man? You want that on your back? I got you. Like, that'd be my whole jail survival tactic. I feel like everybody's got a survival tactic for jail. Like, and the classic one's like, yo, find the biggest guy and punch him in the face. Like, no, you wouldn't do that, man. Like, no, you would get
Mine
your
is
neck
avoid
broken.
jail. Try
That's
not
probably the
to-
best one. That's probably the most effective one. I don't know, Steve. You got any tactics for prison?
Nah,
What's your plan?
I would just ask people what's up. Just be like, hey man, please don't hurt me.
They're like, yo, who you affiliated with, man? Steve's just like, I'm just chilling.
I'm my own person.
I'm just chilling, bro.
I just like music and I like to hang out with my friends.
What if they were just like, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
You can hang with
That's
us.
what I would hope. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Who's that comic that his whole thing is like jail stories because he was in jail. He did one thing called Mexican Got on Boots. Like, that's like his big. There was like a bit he did about that. I forget, man. But those are stories I like. Like, I love stories about dudes who have like just crazy messed up lives. Like, something bad happened to them and they turn that into comedy. Like, there's so many examples. But those are something that's something I really admire in a comic that tells stories. Is something that's like so awful, like a death of someone that's close. Like, obviously that's super tragic, or just like a dark place that they were in their life, and they find something funny in that.
yeah.
Oh,
Like, I feel like
yeah.
that's really special. That always resonates with me.
I found one of my like bits that has been working really well recently. I got like cyberbullied by this like notoriously crazy Philly comedian who just like always shit posts, but he like specifically made a post dedicated to me, just like ranting paragraphs about like what a shitty person I was.
Did he even meet you in person?
Yeah, we kicked him out of our open mic.
Oh, snap.
He had like been an issue for a while, like harassing people.
Dang.
And he finally like posted about me, and I shared it, and I was like, look at this loser. But it reminded me that being cyberbullied by a grown man cannot hold a candle to being real life bullied by 11-year-old girls at summer camp. Like that tops it
Dang.
immediately. And I have this one story about like being bullied at camp, and just like I was not aware that I was being bullied, and like that saved me from being sad about it. I was just like, oh, there's just like no room at the table. Like, it's
that makes me so
fine.
sad because you're just so sweet. Dang, yo.
Like, it was fine.
11-year-old girls are ruthless.
Yo,
Yeah.
girls are ruthless.
They say that that like girls, the damage. No. With boys, you can measure the damage like in money and monetary value, like the stuff they destroy. With females, it's like emotional value, like soul value,
yeah.
like stuff that they destroy on the inside, not the outside.
That's why I always get so excited to like meet another woman in comedy, because you immediately know that like the other person is damaged in a way that you aren't aware of yet.
Dang.
But you're like, girl, I feel it.
Right. They say the same thing about actors, because like anybody that can like cry on cue, you know, there's obviously something wrong with
They
them.
got something going on.
If they can just like feign emotion so easily, like they can just act angry and be like, I wasn't angry at all. Like obviously there's something else there.
You're like, okay.
But yeah, bad situations and turning them funny. I don't think I ever got bullied, but I witnessed some bullying when I was a kid, and I was like, dang, yo, this is wild. I remember in middle school, like I used to see some bullying, but then they made this thing called the bully box at our middle school, and it was just so like what you would do is like you would anonymously report the bully.
Tips.
Yeah, you would give tips, but it was funny because like, these 7th graders and 8th graders like giving tips, so it's just like, yo, we're trying to catch these bullies out in the street.
Yeah.
What can you tell us? And there's this box with a smiley face on it. You remember? And it
I
was
remember the bully box.
the bully box, man. And what was bad is that people treated it like a joke. And I mean, which is kind of funny, but like they would just put kids, kids that would never be bullies. Like they would never be bullies at all. Just like some kid that like never spoke ever in his life. They're just like, this guy's the bully. Like people would put like
so
teachers in
fucked
there.
It's hard
Like,
to take the bully box seriously.
it was messed up. Yeah, like how do you know what I'm saying? You got to be a stand-up citizen as a 7th grader to make that work. And like, who was that? You know what I'm saying? Who was like, I got you, teach. I'm gonna help you catch this bully. But yeah. That's an epidemic, man. But I feel like a lot of people that are bullied, they're forced to be funny in order to combat that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like back to the kids that struggle with obesity. It's like they make fun of themselves, and then bang, like they're funny, and then they just like start having this personality that's just like.
You know, I feel like you
flexing
come to
on
a point
people.
where you just have to accept yourself and the things that happen to you, and you know,
Right.
spin it in a way that like is funny and you're just acceptable to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you like hold stuff back your whole life, like, you know, that's when you become unfunny because you can't joke about anything with you. You know what I mean? You're like, it's like a lit fuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone knows someone like that
Yeah.
takes himself too seriously, and they're just not fun to be around.
Exactly.
Because you got to watch your P's and Q's, like just to offend them. And it's like, it takes so much energy to interact with this person.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
wish I could just
You
be
gotta watch
chill.
what you say. Yeah, you just want to hang out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, man.
that's a strange way to be. Those people need to take some time for themselves. Yeah. Are there any movies that like you're like, I like the humor of this movie? Like, because I'm always looking for comedic movies, but I feel like comedy movies, a lot of them are bad. Like I'm strapped to find like some really good ones.
I was so excited when the movie Obvious Child came on Netflix. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I don't even know
Yeah.
what that is.
That's Jenny Slate, and she is essentially, she's just playing herself. She plays a stand-up comic who gets pregnant, and she chooses to have an abortion, and it's like that's the whole arc of the story. But it's about how she's like figuring it out at open mics, and like is struggling whether or not to tell the guy, like it was a one-night stand and everything. But it's like an amazing cast. David Cross is in it, and yeah, I remember I saw that, and I just like connected so, because I love Jenny Slate ever since she played Mona Lisa on Parks and Rec.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, that's what else? What other movies do I
I recently heard that Mona Lisa. Side note: keep what you were gonna do. I recently heard that Mona Lisa might have been Leonardo da Vinci in drag. Like he was actually dressing up as her. That's like a theory people have. And if you looked it up on Google, there's like a bunch of split images where like they compare the faces and like they're pretty similar. It's weird, man.
What's your review?
I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. I think it's an interesting
He's
theory.
a secret drag queen. He's like, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I don't think he was just like that. Because how would he do it? I mean, he obviously would have to have a mirror or something. But that's a whole nother conversation. What was the other movie?
I'm struggling to think of a movie now.
See, that's my thing. Like, I don't know.
Man, I watched something recently.
I'm into funny shows. I have a bunch of funny shows.
Yeah.
But movies are tough.
I just finished the first season of Gravity Falls, the Disney animated show.
That show was cool.
So good.
That show was cool.
Because I know that it's like definitively 2 seasons. Like they wrote this arc and they had a plan, you know, how all the characters. So I'm in the middle and like the stakes just got raised so much with the finale. And so, but that's one of those like, it's so funny, but there's so many funny adult humor moments where you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's made for older kids though. I really rock with that show. It's funny because the creator of Gravity Falls and the creator of Rick and Morty, Dan Harmon, they're friends. And there's stuff that happens in the Rick and Morty cartoon that carries over into.
I
you
heard
saw that?
Yeah, like someone throws something into a portal and it comes out.
Yeah,
in
so
Rick and Morty.
there's a book, a diary that gets sucked into a portal in one of the scenes of Gravity Falls, and then a corresponding episode of Rick and Morty. Like there's just a scene, and the portal's kind of like on the left side of the screen, and you see the journal fall out, and it's so cool that like they're kind of same universing it. But I'm a huge fan of cartoons. Yeah, I love cartoon comedies. Obviously, Rick and Morty's like the big one right now, but like I love Simpsons. Like I even think like Family Guy. Like Family Guy's gotten worse, but it was pretty funny. Like
I was super into Family Guy in high school. My high school yearbook quote is giggity.
Seriously?
Just so I could see if I could get it into the yearbook, like at my all-girls Catholic school, and they let me.
Wow.
Because they were just like, what does that mean? And I was like, nothing.
Sheesh, you really do have a lot of material with that. I didn't even know in high school you were still in like Catholic school, like all girls.
Oh yeah, I went to Catholic. I didn't pick out my clothes until freshman year at Temple. Like I never wore an outfit.
Yo.
Yeah.
Uniform life.
It was so easy.
That's intense. Now, I'm a big Seth MacFarlane fan too. I like his style of humor. Like I really do. And he's just like a triple threat. Like he can sing, he can write, he has like cartoon designs. Like I would love to be in that sort of position. And he hosts like the celebrity roasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He does a great job.
He also hosted the Emmys. I remember one year where he just like had all those musical numbers and I was just like, who are you?
Yeah, he's obsessed with musicals. That's like an old-timey kind of like reminiscent of like golden age musicals.
Dude, I watched something so old-timey that I didn't even know. I watched the Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Lewis.
Whoa.
And I feel like a jerk, but I didn't know who he was. Like I had to look him up. And then I watched a Colgate Comedy Hour, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. And I was just like, wow, look at all these white guys.
Yeah.
All these white men. But it was like old school slapstick humor. And I was just, and audiences were like way easier to entertain.
Oh, yeah.
But it was still like timelessly funny stuff where I was just like, oh my God.
That's the thing about old comedy, right? It has to be tame enough because it's a time where like comedy has to be tame, so it's easier. But like the funny, like if you could liquidize the funny, it still hits today. Like obviously a lot of the stuff they say is dated, but that funny never goes away. Like Rodney Dangerfield. I was listening to an hour with Rodney Dangerfield the other day just because I like the one-liners, and nobody would do one-liners nowadays. Like they'd be like, "Boo, get off the stage, you hack!" Like just stand up and doing one-liners. No, that's
tons
still
of people. Oh my God, you guys gotta look up Benny Feldman.
Okay,
he's a local comic, and he was on Tosh.0
okay.
last year.
Oh,
but he is someone who came down with Tourette's later in his life, and he has only one-liners, or for the most part one-liners. And he goes out and he's like, I have Tourette's, I'm my own heckler. You know,
Really?
because he just curses.
That's already pretty funny.
Talking to himself.
Like he has like a tick and he'll be like shit fuck and like interrupt his own jokes, and it's so funny.
Actually is pretty funny.
You gotta look him up.
Benny Feldman? You said? All right, cool. I gotta check that out.
Shouts out Benny boy.
I'm a fan of one-liners. Like, and they're so tame, but there's just something about them that's silly.
I like one-liners too.
Like, what did he say? I'm gonna butcher it, but he goes, oh, my dad took me to the zoo, and the zookeeper's like, thanks for finding him, and like that was it. That was the one-liner. And it's funny because after every one there's like a drum roll, so it's like it's just so goofy that you have to laugh.
And
like
the drum roll like lets people know like you
Right.
gotta. There was something about they would trigger audiences to laugh when you would see a monkey. Have you ever heard this?
What?
They would put like a monkey in the background of a shot of like old sitcoms, and that's how the audience would know like, oh, it's time to laugh.
Why a monkey?
I'll do some research
Yeah.
on this and
Like
back
a-
up my claims.
So strange.
A real monkey?
Like, no, just like a picture or like a visual, and like that was the cue for people to laugh. It was so weird.
It is funny because if it's off screen, like, couldn't you just write laugh? Like, wouldn't that be the
That's
same
what
effect?
I always thought it was applause.
Right. Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. It's weird when you watch sitcoms too and you hear that stuff. Like that's become such a staple of like parody humor. Like people do these things where they have like a serious video and they put like a laugh track on it, and like that's become like a whole genre of entertainment, which sometimes is really funny. But like, can you imagine being in a studio audience and like you have to fake laugh? My favorite thing about that though is hearing like the one straggler laugh, like the person's like ha, like right at the end. Like I think that itself is funnier than probably the sitcom joke.
I think somebody took Seinfeld episodes and just edited out the laughter, and
Wow.
it's just like awkward
dead,
conversations.
That'd be so scarring. That'd be so
It's
desolate.
so funny. I love
So uneventful.
anti-humor. I think stuff that is like purposely like so cringy, that's really funny.
Yeah, the anti jokes where it's just like, wow, I used to know so many. Whereas, wasn't there like an alarm clock one with Lady Gaga when she was like, dang, I don't know. Do you know any off the top of your head?
I don't. I can't think of any.
Oh, man, I used to know this one that was just like, it was so bad. Like that's the whole point of anti-humor is just like it subverts your expectation in just like the most hardcore of ways.
You're just left mad.
Right, you're just left mad. But I feel like it's odd because I feel people who are more into intellectual humor find anti-humor to be funny because they understand that subversion, whereas people who are into more, I guess, like physical comedy and like lower level slapstick are just like, what is this, you know? They're expecting a more traditional progression of jokes. But I like people who play with that though. That's really cool. Any comedy shows that you like in particular other than the ones you named, like TV shows? I was always a big fan of My Name is Earl. Like I
loved My Name is Earl.
So it's just funny. Like it just is. And it's almost like joke after joke. Like I love that show.
What am I watching right now? I started Cheers from the beginning. That was cool. I got through the first episode and I was just like, I was watching it with Bill and I was just like, Sam and Diane, they have some are they gonna get together? They have some chemistry. And he's like, do you know who Sam, like that's the trope of Sam and Diane. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Cheers has been nuts to watch straight through from the beginning just because so many stars come through.
I hear a lot about that show.
Have you ever watched it?
No, I haven't seen that, and I've never seen Friends. I've seen like an episode here and there, but I've never watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
I was never like a TV show guy.
Really?
No.
There's so many funny shows though. Like Home Videos. You ever watch that?
America's Funniest.
America's Funniest?
No. What was the one on Adult Swim, the animated one? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Home Videos?
Oh, this one was so good
No, I
with
don't
like the
know what you're
coach. Oh man, it was so cool.
Ooh, one of my favorite cartoons of all time that just recently came back, Venture Brothers.
Yeah. Oh
Venture
man,
Brothers?
yeah. Venture Brothers is really, really good.
I own all of that on DVD, and it just like had a new, I think the season started, season 7.
The new season started.
Oh my god, I was so excited to see that come back.
That's a great show. or you are like The Office is making another resurgence, and I feel like that's a form of comedy and like television that's like
Resurgence how?
It's gonna be timeless. I feel like recently, like on social media, there's just been like a boom of Office memes and like people rewatching The Office. Like obviously it's consistently popular, but I feel like just recently there's been like this summer especially there's been like all this stuff for it. Yeah. Are you an Office person or a Parks and Recreation person or both?
Parks and Rec, 30 Rock when it was on. I loved 30 Rock.
I feel like 30 Rock would be your type of humor. I feel like Tina Fey is like your type of bag.
That came on and I was like grade school, high school, and I was just like, whoa, what is this?
The writing of that show is like what I remember the most. Like just how packed it is. There's zero downtime in the writing. It's just like one thing after another.
I love reading about the writing when Tina Fey in Bossy Pants, when she talks about what it was like to pitch the show, because it has to be like an insane ego trip to pitch your life to a network, and then you're making fun of the network all the way through, and like they have Cabletown and that's supposed to be Comcast and everything, and then I was excited to see Kimmy Schmidt when it came out, and then I lost it. Like I loved the first season, and then I was just like I couldn't get into it. It just like lost steam for me, and people told me that I was wrong and that it does like pick up or it like goes in another direction. But
I saw a few episodes of that and I loved it, but I want to know like why do you think it fell off?
For me, it fell off because they had this really rough storyline about a white blonde character being like Native American, and it was just like super cringy because you could tell it was written by a bunch of white people, and I was just like, oh no.
Not for me.
That wasn't like part of the joke or anything?
I mean, like that was the joke, but it was like poorly executed. Just that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so, but people told me that it like sort of recovered, but it's just like, it's such a funny concept of she's a mole woman. Like she thought that the world was done, and now she's like in this like, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by cult stories. Like obviously that's the story of like cults and stuff. Like I'm fascinated by the cults that do like mass suicides. Like what was that one?
Jonestown.
Yeah, well that's the big one. There was also like the it was like the Jesus Christ Super Rainbow one. You ever seen that one? Yo, and I'm not even making that up. Like it had this like long extravagant name, and they thought that like God was in a spaceship and it was orbiting around the sun, and there was going to be a point where it was parallel with planet Earth, so they all had to kill themselves in order to be like beamed up at that spaceship like on the exact same day.
Oh my God.
And what's even more like, I feel like this would be a cool premise for like a movie or a comedy sketch. With Jonestown, there were people that didn't do the mass suicide. Like they actually like didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy at the last minute to be like, you're so deep into this thought, like this is it. Like this is the way to live. Like I gotta die right now. And they didn't go through with it, you know? I feel like that'd be a good premise for a movie, like a straggler, like of a cult.
Someone who's just like,
Right, and like he just watches everybody die and he's just like, yo, like what just happened?
Pretty dark.
Yeah, no, but like you could try and make it funny. I don't know. I had another idea for a comedy show. I'm gonna share it on here. Not that it's like, oh, I have to hold my comedy idea.
I wanna know.
But you know how in Philadelphia there's a lot of people who talk to themselves and stuff like that, like homeless people, and it's usually like the conversation is it's almost like aggressive, like I didn't do it. So I thought about the story of a homeless person in Philadelphia, and he actually hears a narrator's voice in his head that's narrating his life.
Oh my goodness.
No one else can hear it, and that's who he's talking to the whole time.
Oh my God.
So like people pass him by and they're just like, yo, who's this guy talking to? But it's actually a narrator, and like the narrator's like helping him better his life.
First time.
That's pretty funny. I like that.
Okay, that's potential, right?
Yeah,
I'm pitching it.
You
to
did
you
a
right
you
now.
did a really good impression, by the way,
Of what?
of a guy mumbling to himself in the city. Spot on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
I remember the first time I ever went to New York as a kid, we went on the subway and there was someone there talking to himself who like clearly wasn't all there, and I was like sitting next to my mom and I was like, Mom, what's he doing? And my mom goes, oh, he's just rehearsing lines for a play. He's rehearsing something. And I was just like, oh, cool.
Look at your mom sheltering you.
Shielded. Sheltered.
Shielded. Was that most of your childhood?
Sheltered.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so weird that
Pretty
you were
sheltered.
sheltered and then it was comedy. I feel like people who are the opposite of sheltered like go into comedy.
Oh man, no. It's such a mix of like, you know, other people who grew up very, very conservative and just like nothing. And there are people who are, you know, still like that. They don't drink, they don't party, they're very straight edge, and that's where their humor comes from.
Right. The nerdy comics, like the very nerdy comedians that you just laugh at how goofily like nerdy they are, but they're aware of that. I'm trying to think of some examples.
Do either of you
Dimitri
watch
Martin.
I just watched his new special. That was really good. Do either of you watch Nathan For You?
That's a Tim and Eric show, right?
Is it?
I think they like produced that or something like
Maybe.
that. Tim Heidecker, I think he had a hand in it. I'm familiar with it.
Nathan, that's okay. So this is what I was talking about with like anti-humor and like cringy jokes. Nathan Fielder leans into it, and he's such like an appallingly awkward person, and he like goes and he saves businesses with like these terrible pitches, and just like the fact that he keeps a straight face for most of the shit that he does, you're just like, you're sitting there suffering. But their goal is always to like make the news or something, so when they when they succeed and they actually show the news clip of like local hero, you know, you're just like,
yeah, that show's pretty cool. I have to watch more of it.
Who is America?
No. I've just the trailer that everybody was
That
freaking
show's
out
crazy,
about.
man.
What is it?
It's the guy that did Borat.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen.
First off, I love him.
He's a genius.
I love him.
Dude, he goes to these politicians and he's like, he dresses up as different people every time, and he goes to these politicians. He's like, don't you think we should give like children guns? and he gets all the politicians are like, yeah, give them guns, and he like exposes them, and like, but like it's all these different things. Like he went to this like really racist town, and he dresses up as this guy, and he wants to bring like a Muslim church to this town, and the people are like, oh hell no, we're not doing that. Dude,
nuts.
It's crazy.
When he was tricking the politicians and like filming that show, he apparently knew his shit. Like he was so deep into character. He played this like Israeli military leader, and when the trailer came out and it showed, you know, just the dumb clips of the crazy shit the politicians were saying, they were tweeting and they were like, this person engaged me for 45 minutes talking about like foreign policy, and then they only showed the last 5 minutes of like the most extreme thing. And I'm like, you shouldn't be an elected official if Sacha Baron Cohen and his team tricked you into saying this crazy shit.
But think about how elaborate that setup was, like all the research.
See, that show in
into
general,
it,
dude, it's hilarious, but it was scary, bro.
Even the makeup.
That's the craziest thing is like, he
God.
exposes them, and you're just like, man, these are our politicians. Seriously.
That's pretty wild.
I was like, wow.
He's a hero. He's an American hero, that man.
Get him exposed.
Yeah. I feel like another person who's like that is Eric Andre.
He's so good.
He's the man.
He did this one bit that to this day, like, there's almost nothing that tops it. So he's outside, and there's this protester guy, kind of like a doomsday end of the world guy, and the guy is saying all sorts of stuff, like, you know, we're being surveyed and stuff like that, and he starts going, I am God, and Eric Andre goes, prove it, take a poop in front of us. It's like, the lack of connection there is just one of the funniest things ever. Like, that's one of my favorite things about him. Like, there's an episode, I'm not sure if you guys ever watch like the Eric Andre show.
Sometimes.
Very early episode. You know how they always bring on like a celebrity guest? One time the guest was just a bear, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, a bear. And like a huge grizzly bear walks in, and it's real, and he goes, oh man, this is a really bad idea. The bear breaks the desk and he runs away. And it's like a 1-minute bit. It's so funny, man. That's like one of my favorite shows. Like Eric Andre show and Hannibal Buress. Like after Hannibal Buress just kind of like destroyed Bill Cosby, he kind of just jumped into this huge limelight of comedy, so much so that I saw him open up for a concert once. Like I went to go see Nas, and he was the opener for Nas. Like it wasn't even a rapper, like it was just Hannibal Buress came out.
Sounds like an
comedy.
awesome show.
It was so good. It was so good. He killed. It was
have you seen Hannibal Buress rapping as from the Matrix, Morpheus, when he's rapping as Morpheus?
No, now I need to watch it.
Oh my god, it's
I love
so
Morpheus.
Funny.
That's good. Was that like a late night bit or something like that?
Yeah, he closes out the show.
That
He's like
sounds
doing
like
it during the credits, and he gets into a coffin at the end.
That sounds like
so
a late night bit.
One of my other favorite shows that's on right now, Drunk History. You ever watch
Yo,
that?
that show's a
seen that.
classic.
So good.
That show is a classic.
Because like it's so genius too, like the idea to record people drunk as hell, and then the amount of effort that it must take to film it and match up like the person's dialogue to the actors.
The actors, yeah.
The best, one of my favorite episodes, Jenny Slate is telling the story, and Bill Hader is playing like a barkeep in the background, and Jenny Slate has a dog during filming. The dog starts barking, and Bill Hader's the dog in the background.
I do remember that
Dumb
clip.
stuff like that.
Are you aware of the premise at all?
No, I'm not.
So they get these people who like know a bit about history and stuff like that, and their task is to tell a story about a historical event, but they get them really, really wasted.
They get them plastered.
Yeah, they get them plastered. So obviously, like it's hilarity. Sometimes like they'll like nod off in the middle of it, but they take the dialogue of what they said word for word and they reenact it with the actors like
narrating.
So yeah, the audio track is them talking.
Yeah.
But you know how like when someone's telling a story, it'll cut to the actor like mouthing what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's word for word like what they say. And it's really, really funny, man.
It sounds funny.
It's a great concept for a show, dude. I'm into that. The voice actor of Rick and Morty, who I'm blanking on right now, every time before he plays Rick, the producers at Adult Swim, Justin Roiland, they get him really drunk. So a lot of what you hear of him, like the burping and stuff, is actually real. Because like he's like super turnt when he's playing the character.
My favorite on Drunk History is when they have to like cut to a commercial because the actor narrating like has to stop and puke.
Right, right. I love the abrupt stopping where like all the cinematics and music goes away and they're like, I'm not really feeling too great.
And you're just like, I need a bathroom.
It's just like it's so good how they just snaps back to reality like that. Yeah, I feel like now with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and stuff like that, there's so much to watch. Like, there's so much. Like, people tell me to watch all sorts of shows. Like, right now, I only watch one show at a time, and I'm watching Better Call Saul, and I'm really, really into that show. I love Bob Odenkirk. I think he's super funny. Like, even in the Tim and Eric stuff, he's hilarious.
Yeah, Mr. Show. You ever watch that?
No, what's that?
Oh my God, that's Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, and they had.
You're a big David Cross fan, huh?
Yeah. Oh my God, Arrested Development. Tobias is like.
That show made a huge comeback.
Wonderful. Yeah, dude, Mr. Show will like have you in tears. That was them like young dudes trying to, make and it's really funny. But Better Call Saul makes me so happy because like to see a comedic actor be that good at drama.
Yeah.
And to see him, get all of this recognition and fame for like being a really good actor. I'm like, you go, Bob Odenkirk. Yeah,
there was a lot of comics in Breaking Bad. Like, well, not a lot for that kind of show. Laval Crawford, Bill Burr, and then recently they had these two twins on Better Call Saul. What are their names? I'm blanking. On the music store. Do you remember the episode where they're in the music store? They're two twin comics. They're recently on Something's Burning. I don't know, but it seems to be like a lot of comics are in Vince Gilligan's like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul that play like serious characters, and I really like that. I think it adds more of a fictional sense because these people who are naturally funny are now like completely different people, like super serious. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
And I'm a huge like Breaking Bad person, so to see Better Call Saul like get closer to the Breaking Bad storyline, I mean, like it's so what's like pandering to Breaking Bad fans, but at the same time, it's like so good.
Breaking Bad it's kind of become a guilty pleasure for me because there is that time where everybody's like, you have to watch it, you have to watch it, and like fans of it were really annoying. But like I really genuinely liked it, and I still do, Yeah. But there's just. You're right. There's a lot of pandering in that show. It's like, huh? Like Gus, you remember Gus, right? Gus Fring. It's like, yeah, we get it. You know what I'm saying?
But that's why I love
like trying too hard.
Yeah. I don't know. Kinda. It's delving into that sometimes. I love it though.
It's also if you're like not a Breaking Bad person and you're just trying to watch Better Call Saul, they have these big dramatic build-up moments to reveal a character, and if you don't know Breaking Bad, you don't know who it is.
That's what I was trying to say. Exactly.
So, but one reason that I loved Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston, like so funny from Malcolm in the Middle. He's like an amazing comedic actor, and then to see him like turn around and do drama, you're just like, what?
He didn't start acting until he was 40. Yeah, he didn't start acting until he was 40. He was in a Folgers coffee commercial first. He landed an audition for a Folgers coffee commercial when he was 40 years old, and then it was Seinfeld, and then it was Malcolm in the Middle.
That's
and
so
then,
crazy.
Yeah, he didn't start acting until like late in life, and obviously now like because of Breaking Bad, he's huge. But I don't know, stories like that inspire me because I'm like, dang, you don't got to do it from the sandbox. You can kind of jump in later on.
We all got time.
That's true. And speaking of time, it's about 9:52, so we've been going for 2 hours. So I think I'm going to close the episode out unless there's anything else that you guys want to talk about. No, we're cool right here.
What's your favorite snack?
Ooh, favorite snack? Gotta be Cheez-Its.
Why didn't you tell me I would have got them?
Because
I texted you specifically.
Because I don't want my mouth full while I'm talking about my passion.
Cheeses are hard to talk with.
I don't want to be spraying all over your microphone. It's a nice microphone.
You would have been cool. I mean, I don't know.
I'm all about those white cheddar grooves.
Get your groove on.
Have you ever had them?
What about goldfish?
Goldfish are
Neither
great.
you goldfish people? I like
White
goldfish.
cheddar
Can't
grooves,
go
bro.
wrong with goldfish.
Here's what I don't like about
Pizza
goldfish.
flavor goldfish?
There's a little buildup, though. You know when it's like building up on your teeth? I hate that.
I feel like that's Cheez-Its too, though.
That's why I'm not a Cheez-Its person.
I'm not a Cheez-Its
I wasn't
guy
a
either.
I wasn't a Cheetos person because I didn't like it on my hand.
Oh, dude, weren't we just,
don't-
talking about keyboard grease? Oh.
Yeah. You don't get the residue with the Cheez-Its. You're free of the residue.
You're right, but Cheetos,
You
it's,
get a
it's
little
heavy.
grease.
Yeah, I think I'm like no evidence snacks like grapes. You know what I'm saying? You eat a grape, you don't even know. Like that thing's gone.
Health.
Dude, no evidence snacks are the way to go.
Yeah, man, that's how it is.
Like
No
sharp
evidence.
Parmesan.
Right.
Besides, well, we did have a wrapper, but
I love how you say sharp.
yeah.
It was sharp Parmesan. It
I
wasn't
guess you
just
could tell from
Parmesan.
my breath too.
Yeah, that's how I get self conscious about that too, man. When I'm eating snacks, bro, especially at work, like you can't have when you're eating potato chips and it gets all over your shirt. Like, how do you bounce back from that if you're wearing black?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
hard to bounce
It
back
is.
from. If you ever noticed.
Yeah, no, I have noticed.
With that tangent out of the way, this has been episode 42. Erin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Shows and stuff that you want to plug of your own, that in case somebody listening is interested in comedy, that they'll be aware of.
Ooh, hey, do you like laughter and also butts? I run a First Friday showcase called Comedy for Gentlemen. It is at the most esteemed South Philly strip club you will ever find, the Republican Club.
The Republican Club.
Yeah, the Republican Club.
Been there 70 times.
It is, guys, you will not find a place that has, it's a smoking bar, there is a dog in there, and it is a small, humble strip club with comedy every first Friday, hosted by me.
There you go.
Come check it out, guys.
So go check that out. This has been episode 42. See you next time. Yo, yo, yo. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Andrewcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your attention. Before we get into the content of today's episode, I definitely want to get into our sponsor that I've been so graciously gifted, Roast House Coffee, located in South Texas. Now, you may be saying, Andrew, I'm not a coffee person. You know, I like tea. I like drinking tea and honey and throw a little bit of milk in there. You know, I'm trying to live my life. Look, I understand you're trying to live your life, okay? I understand you may not be a coffee person. I wasn't either until I got me some Roast House coffee. Now, Roast House was gracious enough to send me Liquid Thunder. Liquid Thunder is a fan favorite in-house blend made by the Roast Coffee House. It combines the bold, smooth taste of dark roasted Colombian coffee beans with a subtle hint of chocolate to top it off. You can't beat it, bro. Let me tell you a little bit more about Roast House. The Roast House is not your ordinary coffee shop. They roast freshly imported coffee beans from all around the world, in-house daily, located in Brownsville, home of the brave, putting work in the street like a slave, Texas, Our mission is to bring the taste of the world into South Texas, one bean at a time. From popular flavors to in-house blends, we serve all natural preservative-free coffee, espressos, teas, and other beverages. Homie, come on into our shop and enjoy a fresh cup of joe, or take some bean grounds home for your loved ones. So come get a fresh cup of joe, or come take some beans to go. You heard it here first. Take some grounds home for your loved ones to enjoy. And for those not living in South Texas, don't fret. Don't even worry about it. We will be launching an online store soon for coffee lovers across the world. You too will be able to taste coffee done right. Listen, folks, if you want some coffee, you want some high-grade stuff, you don't want to mess around with the Starbucks, right? You don't want to mess around with the Dunkin' Donuts. You don't want to mess around with the Wawa. You don't want to mess around with the McDonald's coffee, all right? You want to go straight to the house, the Roast House. Baby, Roast House Coffee. Look it up online. Look it up on Instagram. It's the newest. It's the latest. Thank you so much for sponsoring my podcast. Everyone enjoy today's episode. Love you.